I was called a gold digger, a nobody, an embarrassment. My boyfriend's family laughed while his mistress clung to his arm aboard what they thought was their cruise ship. But here's what they didn't know. I owned the entire fleet, and I was about to make this voyage unforgettable. If you love stories about karma, secrets, and ultimate revenge, you're in the right place. Hit that subscribe button and buckle up. This is going to be one wild ride. My name is Luna, and 3 years ago, I thought I'd found the love of my life. His name was Blake Anderson, and when I met him at a charity gala in Manhattan, he seemed like everything I'd ever wanted. Tall, charming, with this infectious laugh that made everyone in the room turn and smile. He was ambitious, driven, and when he looked at me that first night, I felt like I was the only person in the world. I should probably tell you a bit about myself. I'm not from money. Far from it, actually. I grew up in a small town in Ohio, the daughter of a single mother who worked 2 jobs just to keep the lights on, but I was determined to build something for myself. After college, I started investing in struggling businesses, turning them around and selling them for profit. It wasn't glamorous, and it certainly wasn't easy, but by the time I was 30, I'd built a small empire. My biggest achievement? Quietly acquiring struggling cruise lines and transforming them into luxury experiences. I created a parent corporation, kept my name out of the press, and hired professional managers to be the public face. Nobody knew Luna Hartwell owned Celestial Cruise Lines and 16 other vessels, and I liked it that way. Blake didn't know about my wealth when we started dating. I told him I worked in hospitality management, which wasn't exactly a lie. I wore simple clothes, drove a modest car, and lived in a nice but not extravagant apartment. I wanted someone to love me, not for what I'd built, and Blake seemed to do exactly that. For the first few months, everything was perfect. We'd take long walks in Central Park, have dinner at cozy little restaurants, and talk for hours about our dreams and fears. He told me about his family's real estate business, how his father was planning to retire soon, and how he hoped to take over one day. I shared my own stories, carefully edited, of course, about building my career from nothing. But then I met his family, and everything changed. Blake's mother, Patricia Anderson, was the kind of woman who could freeze you with a single look. She had perfectly styled gray hair, always wore pearls, and spoke with this clipped, aristocratic accent that made every word sound like a judgment. The first time Blake brought me to their estate in Connecticut, she looked me up and down like I was something unpleasant she'd stepped in. I was wearing a simple cream-colored dress, nothing fancy, but appropriate. Or so I thought. "How quaint," Patricia said, her lips barely moving. "Blake, darling, where did you find this one?" Blake laughed nervously. "Mom, this is Luna." "I told you about her." "Oh yes, the girl from Ohio who works in, what was it? Hotels?" She said the word like it tasted bad. His sister Jennifer was even worse. She was 2 years younger than Blake with the same dark hair and sharp features, but where Blake had warmth, Jennifer had ice. She barely acknowledged me that first meeting, spending the entire lunch on her phone, occasionally looking up to smirk at something her mother said. By dessert, I'd been asked about my parents' professions, my education, where I shopped, and whether I'd ever been to Europe properly, not just one of those backpacking things poor people do. I smiled through it all. Blake squeezed my hand under the table and later apologized profusely. "They're just protective," he said. "Give them time. They'll come around." They never did. Over the next 2 years, every family gathering was a new form of torture. Patricia would seat me at the far end of the table. Jennifer would make comments about my budget fashion choices. Blake's father, Richard, mostly ignored me, which was almost worse than the active hostility. But I stayed, because I loved Blake, and because he kept promising it would get better. Then came the cruise invitation. It was a Saturday morning when Blake called me, sounding excited. "Luna, I have amazing news. Dad's finally retiring and Mom's planned this incredible celebration, a week-long cruise in the Caribbean. The whole family's going and she specifically asked me to invite you." I was surprised. "Really? Your mom asked for me to come?" "Yes. I think this is it, Luna. This is your chance to really bond with them. Away from all the usual stress, just sun and sea and quality time. What do you say? I should have known better. I should have recognized the setup, but I was hopeful, maybe even a little desperate to finally be accepted, so I said yes. I requested time off from my job, which basically meant telling my executive team I'd be unavailable for a week. Then I packed my bags, bought a new swimsuit and a couple of sundresses, and prepared myself for what I hoped would be a turning point. The ship was one of mine, actually. The Celestial Dawn, a beautiful vessel I'd acquired 3 years prior and completely renovated. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, world-class restaurants. It was my pride and joy. But Blake didn't know that. Nobody did. As far as everyone was concerned, his family had simply booked an expensive cruise, and I was lucky to be included. We met at the port in Miami on a blazing, hot Sunday morning. I arrived in an Uber, carrying my own suitcase, wearing comfortable white pants and a pale yellow blouse. I felt good, optimistic even. Then I saw the Anderson family's arrival. 3 black luxury cars pulled up. Porters rushed to grab their matching designer luggage sets. Patricia emerged wearing a burgundy suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. Jennifer wore head-to-toe designer labels. Her sunglasses alone were thousands. Richard looked dignified in a crisp white linen suit. And Blake? Blake stepped out in expensive casual wear, looking every bit the wealthy heir he was. Patricia's eyes found me immediately. She walked over, her heels clicking on the pavement, and gave me that familiar once-over. "Oh, Luna, I thought you'd dress up for once. This is a special occasion, after all." "I'm dressed comfortably for travel," I said, keeping my voice pleasant. She replied, which could have meant anything but felt like a criticism. Blake kissed my cheek. "You look great," he whispered, but he wouldn't meet my eyes. Something was off. He kept checking his phone, his jaw tight with tension. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Yeah, fine. Just some work stuff." "Come on, let's board." We walked up the gangway, and I felt a surge of pride looking at my ship. The crew greeted us warmly. They didn't know I was the owner either, part of my strict privacy policy, and directed the Anderson family toward their premium suites. I was about to follow when I heard a voice behind us. "Blake, there you are." I turned and saw her, a woman in her late 20s, stunning in that effortless way some people are. Long blonde hair, perfect makeup, wearing a designer red dress that probably cost more than my entire suitcase. She glided toward us like she owned the place, and when she reached Blake, she kissed him on the cheek. Not a friendly peck. A kiss that lingered just a moment too long. Blake's face went completely white. "Scarlett, hi. I didn't know you'd be here yet." Scarlett laughed, a tinkling sound like breaking glass. "Your mother told me to come early. She said, all the important people should board together." Her eyes slid to me. "Oh, hello, you must be—" "Luna," I said, extending my hand. "Blake's girlfriend." Her handshake was limp, dismissive. How sweet. Patricia appeared beside us, smiling in a way that made my blood run cold. "Oh, good, everyone's here. Shall we go to the suites? Scarlett, dear, you're right next to Blake, just like we discussed." My stomach dropped. "I'm sorry, what?" Blake finally looked at me, and what I saw in his eyes wasn't love. It was guilt. Pure, undiluted guilt. "Luna, can we talk privately?" he said quietly. "No," Patricia interrupted. "I think it's time we were all honest here. Luna, dear, you seem like a perfectly nice girl, but Scarlett Monroe is Blake's actual partner. They've been together, on and off, since college. You were, well, a distraction, a phase. But now that Richard is retiring and Blake is taking over the family business, it's time for him to be with someone appropriate. Someone from our world." The deck seemed to tilt beneath my feet, and it had nothing to do with the ship's movement. "Blake?" He couldn't look at me. "Luna, it's complicated." Jennifer appeared, grinning like this was the best entertainment she'd seen in years. "Oh my God, you really didn't tell her?" "Blake, that's cold even for you." "Tell me what?" My voice sounded strange, distant. Scarlett stepped closer to Blake, slipping her arm through his in a gesture that was clearly possessive. "That we're getting engaged, sweetie. This cruise is actually our announcement party. Didn't Blake mention?" The world stopped. Everything I thought I knew, everything I'd believed for 3 years, shattered in that single moment. I looked at Blake, really looked at him, and saw a stranger, a coward, a liar. "You let me come here," I said slowly. "You invited me to watch you get engaged to someone else?" "It wasn't supposed to happen this way," Blake stammered. "Mom changed the plans. I was going to tell you before." "Before what? Before you humiliated me in front of your entire family? Before you paraded your real girlfriend around like I'm nothing?" Patricia sighed dramatically. "Don't make a scene, dear. It's unbecoming. You had to have known this wasn't serious. Blake is an Anderson. You work in hotels. Did you really think there was a future here?" Something inside me went very quiet, very still. I looked at each of them. Patricia with her smug superiority, Jennifer barely containing her laughter, Scarlett clinging to Blake like a trophy, and Blake himself unable to even defend me. And I made a decision. "You're right," I said calmly. "I should have known better." Patricia looked surprised by my composure. "Well, I'm glad you're being reasonable about this. Blake has arranged for you to have a cabin. Nothing fancy, but adequate. You're welcome to enjoy the cruise, and when we dock, we'll of course compensate you for your trouble." "How generous," I said, my voice flat. I turned and walked toward the interior of the ship, my head high, even as I heard Jennifer's laughter behind me. A crew member approached to show me to my cabin, a small interior room, no window, barely bigger than a closet. The contrast to the luxury suites the Andersons were enjoying couldn't have been more stark. It was deliberate, of course. One final humiliation. I sat on the narrow bed and stared at the wall, and then, for the first time in years, I let myself cry. Not because I was weak, but because I'd wasted 3 years loving someone who saw me as disposable, someone who let his family treat me like garbage because I didn't come with a trust fund and a pedigree, but tears only last so long, and as mine dried, something else took their place. Not anger, exactly, something colder, more focused. They thought they knew me, thought I was some poor girl who'd gotten lucky landing a rich boyfriend, thought I'd slink away quietly, grateful for whatever scraps they threw me. They had no idea who I really was, and I was about to show them. That first dinner was designed to break me. I knew it the moment I walked into the grand dining room and saw the seating arrangement. There was a long table set with crystal and fine china, candles flickering in the golden light. The Anderson family sat clustered at one end, Patricia and Richard at the head, Blake and Scarlett beside them, Jennifer and her husband across. And at the very far end, isolated and alone, was my place setting. I'd changed into a simple coral dress, the nicest thing I'd brought. As I approached, conversation stopped. All eyes turned to me. Patricia's lips curved in what might have been a smile but looked more like a predator baring its teeth. "Luna, how nice of you to join us. We weren't sure you'd come." "I wouldn't miss it," I said, taking my seat. A waiter immediately appeared to pour wine, but he skipped my glass. A small slight, but deliberate. Throughout dinner, I was invisible. Patricia held court, talking about the family business, upcoming social events, and plans for Blake's future. Scarlett contributed anecdotes about mutual friends, charity galas, and her family's connections. They spoke a language of wealth and privilege I supposedly couldn't understand. Country clubs and summer homes and people we know. When the main course arrived, Jennifer raised her glass. "I'd like to make a toast. To Blake and Scarlett, and to keeping our family's legacy strong. To marrying well and marrying right." Her eyes flicked to me on the word right. Everyone drank, except me, because I still didn't have any wine. Blake looked uncomfortable but said nothing. Not one word in my defense. He just cut his steak and avoided my gaze. After dinner, I escaped to the upper deck. The ocean stretched endlessly black beneath a sky full of stars. I stood at the railing, letting the wind cool my burning face, when I heard voices. I turned and saw them, Blake and Scarlett, emerging from the shadows near the pool area. They didn't see me. I watched as Scarlett pulled Blake close, whispered something in his ear, and kissed him. Not a friendly kiss. A deep, passionate kiss that made it absolutely clear this wasn't new. This had been happening for a while. When they finally broke apart, Blake said, "We should go back inside." "Why?" "Afraid your little charity case will see us?" Scarlett laughed. "She's probably crying in her cabin." God, I almost feel bad for her. Almost. "Scarlett, don't what?" "She was never really your girlfriend, Blake. Be honest. You were slumming it, having fun with a girl who was grateful for your attention. But this is real life. And in real life, people like us marry people like us. That's just how it works." I stepped out of the shadows. "You're absolutely right." They both spun around, shock written across their faces. "Luna!" Blake started. "Save it," I cut him off. "Scarlett's right. I should have known better. I should have seen this coming, but I didn't, and that's on me." Scarlett recovered quickly, crossing her arms. "Well, at least you're being mature about it." "Oh, I am. Very mature." I looked directly at Blake. 3 years. You let this go on for 3 years. Did any of it mean anything to you? For a moment, just a moment, I saw something in his eyes. Regret, maybe, or just discomfort at being called out. "Luna, you're a great person. Really. But my family, the business, the expectations, it's complicated. You wouldn't understand. Because I'm not from your world. Because you don't know what it's like having all these responsibilities, these legacies to uphold." I almost laughed. Almost told him right then that I understood business and legacy better than he ever would. But I held back. The time wasn't right yet. "Here," Blake said, reaching into his pocket. He pulled out an envelope. "I was going to give this to you tomorrow, but might as well do it now. There's $20,000 in here. More than enough to restart. Get yourself settled when we dock. Consider it a thank you for the time we had." He held it out to me. $20,000, like I was a service he was tipping. Scarlett smiled, enjoying this. "Take it, sweetheart. It's more than generous. Blake's being really kind, considering." I looked at the envelope, at Blake's face, at Scarlett's smug expression, and I made my decision. "Keep your money," I said quietly. "I don't need it." "Luna, don't be proud. Just take it." I said no. I turned and walked away, leaving them both standing there in the dark. As I headed back to my tiny cabin, I passed the guest services desk. The night manager on duty smiled at me. "Good evening, ma'am." "Is everything all right?" I paused. "Actually, I need to make a call. Can you connect me to Ryan Mitchell in corporate?" "Of course. Is there a specific department?" "Executive operations. Tell him it's Luna." The manager's eyes widened slightly. "Right away, Miss Hartwell." 5 minutes later, I was on the phone with Ryan, my operations director, and one of the few people who knew my real identity. "Luna? Is everything okay? You said this week was personal?" "Change of plans, Ryan. I need you to do something for me. Tomorrow evening, I want you to arrange a special gala event in the Grand Ballroom. Invite all passengers. Make it formal, elegant, and make sure it's presented as a surprise celebration." "Okay. May I ask what we're celebrating?" "Truth," I said, "and consequences." There was a pause. Ryan had worked with me for 5 years. He knew better than to question my decisions. "I'll handle everything. Anything else?" "Yes, I'll need access to the ship's security footage from the past 48 hours. And Ryan, make sure my dress is ready. The silver one." "The Valentino?" "That's the one." "Luna, whatever you're planning, it's going to be spectacular, isn't it?" I smiled for the first time in days. "You have no idea." The next day dragged by in a series of small humiliations. Breakfast, where Patricia made loud comments about some people not knowing proper table manners. Lunch by the pool, where Jennifer and Scarlett discussed expensive boutiques while making sure I overheard every word. Afternoon tea, where I sat alone while the Anderson family entertained other wealthy passengers, occasionally pointing in my direction and whispering. Blake avoided me entirely. I saw him once, walking past with Scarlett attached to his arm, and he actually turned and went the other direction. Coward. But I endured it all with perfect composure, because I knew what was coming. That evening, invitations appeared under every passenger's door, embossed in gold. You are cordially invited to a special gala celebration in the Grand Ballroom. Formal attire required. 8 p.m. sharp. I spent the afternoon in my cabin, preparing. Ryan had arranged for my dress to be delivered, a stunning silver gown that cost more than most people's cars, custom-made by one of the world's top designers. I'd worn it once before, to a private industry awards ceremony where I'd been recognized for my contributions to luxury travel. Tonight, I'd wear it again, but for a very different purpose. At 7:30, I made my way to the Grand Ballroom through the service corridors. The staff knew me on sight, though most had never understood why their corporate communications sometimes came from Miss Hartwell rather than the public-facing CEO. Tonight, they'd understand everything. The ballroom looked magnificent. Crystal chandeliers cast rainbow light across marble floors. Round tables draped in white and gold surrounded a central stage where a podium stood. A massive screen behind it displayed the Celestial Cruise Line's logo. Champagne flowed, and a string quartet played soft classical music. Passengers filtered in, dressed in their finest, buzzing with curiosity. And then the Anderson family arrived. Patricia wore diamonds, lots of them. Jennifer was in a designer purple gown, Scarlett shimmered in gold lame, and Blake wore a perfectly tailored tuxedo, looking every inch the wealthy heir. They found their table front and center, settling in with the easy confidence of people who believed they belonged. I watched from backstage as Patricia leaned toward Blake. "Do you know what this is about?" "No idea. Maybe the captain does these things?" "How common." At exactly 8 p.m., the lights dimmed. The string quartet fell silent, and Captain Torres stepped onto the stage. He was a dignified man in his 50s, with silver hair and a commanding presence. I'd hired him myself 3 years ago after his previous company went bankrupt. He was loyal, professional, and excellent at his job. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us this evening. We have a very special guest tonight, someone who has personally ensured that every detail of your voyage is perfect, someone whose vision and dedication built the very ship beneath your feet. Please welcome the owner of Celestial Cruise Lines and 16 other luxury vessels around the world, Ms. Luna Hartwell." I stepped onto the stage. The silence was deafening. Every eye in the room fixed on me as I walked to the podium in my silver gown, my head high, my steps confident. I saw the exact moment recognition hit the Anderson family. Patricia's mouth fell open. Jennifer dropped her champagne glass, which shattered on the floor. Scarlett looked confused, turning to Blake as if he could explain. And Blake went absolutely white, like he'd seen a ghost. I reached the podium and smiled. Not a warm smile, a victorious one. "Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Luna Hartwell. I founded Celestial Cruise Lines 8 years ago after acquiring my first struggling cruise ship and transforming it into a profitable luxury experience. Since then, I've built a fleet of 17 vessels, employed over 5,000 people, and established a reputation for excellence in the industry." I let that sink in, watched the confusion on faces turning to awe as they realized who I really was. I usually stay behind the scenes. I prefer my work to speak for itself, and I have talented people who manage the public face of my companies. But tonight, I thought it was time to step into the light. You see, something happened on this voyage that reminded me why I built this business in the first place. It reminded me about dignity, respect, and the value of truth. My eyes found the Anderson table. Patricia looked like she might faint. Blake was frozen, his face a mask of horror and disbelief. Over the past few days, I've been treated in ways that no person should be treated. I've been called a gold digger, a nobody, an embarrassment. I've been mocked for my clothes, my background, where I come from. I've been told I don't belong, that I'm not good enough, that people like me should know our place. The screen behind me lit up. Security footage began to play. Patricia's comment at boarding about my quaint dress, Jennifer's poolside mockery, Scarlett's kiss with Blake on the upper deck, followed by her cruel laughter, probably crying in her cabin. I almost feel bad for her. Almost. The room erupted in gasps and murmurs. I saw other passengers turning to look at the Anderson family with dawning disgust. But here's the thing, I continued, my voice carrying across the stunned silence. I didn't need to prove myself to anyone. I knew who I was. I knew what I'd built. I let them believe I was nothing because I wanted to see who they really were, and they showed me. I looked directly at Patricia. You asked how I could afford this cruise. I didn't pay for it. I own it. This ship, the crew, every service you've enjoyed, all of it belongs to me. Patricia tried to stand, but her legs seemed to give out. She sank back into her chair. I turned to Jennifer. You laughed at my cheap clothes. I prefer to invest in assets, in businesses, in people, not in labels designed to impress people I don't respect. Jennifer's face burned red. My gaze moved to Scarlett. You called this business. You were right. Business is exactly what this is. And in business, you should always know who you're dealing with. You don't. Finally, I looked at Blake. And you. You offered me $20,000 to disappear, to quietly go away like I was an embarrassing mistake. Here's the truth, Blake. I'm worth more than your entire family combined. My company's annual revenue is 8 times your father's real estate holdings. I could buy your business and shut it down tomorrow without making a dent in my assets. Blake's face crumbled. Luna, I didn't know. You didn't want to know. You wanted someone who made you feel important, who was grateful for your attention, who wouldn't challenge you or your family's petty cruelty. You wanted small, because small was easy. I turned back to the audience. I'm sharing this not to embarrass anyone, well, not only to embarrass them, but to remind all of us of something important. Never judge people by their clothes, their address, or where they came from. True success is quiet. True power doesn't need to announce itself, and the people you underestimate today might be the ones holding all the cards tomorrow. The room exploded in applause. Passengers stood, clapping, some even cheering. The Anderson family sat frozen, trapped in their chairs by the weight of their humiliation. Captain Torres appeared beside me with a small smile. What would you like me to do, Miss Hartwell? The Anderson family's premium suites. I want them moved to standard interior cabins. The elderly couple from table 12, the ones celebrating their 50th anniversary, give them the premium suite. And the Anderson family's special dining privileges, their spa access, everything, revoke it all. They'll receive standard passenger amenities for the remainder of the voyage. Consider it done. I stepped down from the stage. As I walked through the ballroom, passengers reached out to shake my hand, to congratulate me. I saw tears in some eyes, other people who'd been judged and dismissed, who saw themselves in my story. Behind me, I heard Patricia's voice, shrill and desperate. This is outrageous. We'll sue. You'll do nothing, I said, turning back one last time. Because everything I showed tonight is the truth. Every word you spoke, every action you took, all recorded by the ship's security system that I installed. Try to sue me, and I'll make sure every media outlet in the country knows exactly what kind of people you are. Trust me, Mrs. Anderson, you do not want that fight. I walked away and didn't look back. The rest of the cruise was paradise. The Anderson family barely left their new cramped cabins. I heard they took their meals in their rooms, unable to face the other passengers who now knew exactly who they were. Blake tried to reach me twice, left notes at my new suite. Yes, I upgraded myself to the owner's personal quarters, begging to talk. I threw them away without reading past the first line. Scarlett apparently left Blake the day after the gala. Turns out gold digging works both ways, and she wanted no part of the scandal. Jennifer's social media went silent. Difficult to post about luxury when you're exposed as cruel and shallow. Patricia? Well, I heard she mostly stayed in bed claiming illness. Richard at least had the decency to look ashamed. When we finally docked back in Miami, I disembarked first. My car was waiting, a sleek car with my driver holding the door. The Anderson family had to wait in the regular passenger line, carrying their own luggage. As I drove past, Blake saw me through the window. He raised his hand, maybe to wave, maybe to signal for me to stop. I looked away. 3 months have passed since that cruise. My company is thriving more than ever. Turns out the story leaked. Someone on the ship talked to the press, and instead of hurting my business, it helped. People loved the narrative of the underestimated woman who built an empire in secret. Bookings increased 40%. I've been featured in business magazines, invited to speak at conferences, even approached about a book deal. Blake tried to contact me for weeks. Flowers, letters, even showing up at my corporate office once until security escorted him out. Eventually, the messages stopped. I heard through the industry grapevine that his father's real estate business took a hit. Turns out several of their contracts were with hospitality companies that do business with me. When those contracts weren't renewed, the Anderson portfolio suffered. Not because of me directly, but because reputation matters in business, and their reputation was in tatters. Scarlett moved to Los Angeles. Jennifer deleted all her social media. Patricia apparently still tells people the whole thing was a misunderstanding, but nobody believes her. I donated a substantial amount to several charities in Patricia's name: organizations supporting women in business, scholarships for first-generation college students, and programs helping people from small towns achieve their dreams. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Do I regret the way it all went down? Sometimes, late at night, I wonder if I should have just walked away quietly, taken the high road. But then I remember sitting at that dinner table, invisible and mocked. I remember Blake's face when he handed me that envelope of money. I remember Scarlett's cruel laughter. And I realize I don't regret a thing. People will always judge you. They'll decide who you are based on what you wear, where you're from, who your family is. But real power isn't loud. It isn't diamonds and designer labels and making sure everyone knows your worth. Real power is knowing it yourself. It's building something meaningful while others underestimate you. It's being patient enough to wait for the perfect moment to show the world who you really are. Blake and his family thought I was nothing. They thought they could humiliate me, discard me, pay me off like I was some minor inconvenience in their perfect lives. They never imagined that the quiet girl from Ohio, the one who worked in hospitality management, could own the very ground beneath their feet. And that's the beautiful thing about underestimation. It's the best disguise in the world. While they were busy looking down on me, I was building an empire. While they were mocking my simple clothes, I was closing multi-million-dollar deals. While they were laughing, I was winning. I'm not angry anymore. I'm not hurt. I'm free. Free from people who saw me as less than. Free from trying to prove myself to those who would never accept me anyway. Free to build, create, and succeed on my own terms. My name is Luna Hartwell. I own 17 cruise ships, employ thousands of people, and I built it all from nothing. And the best part? There are probably 100 other women out there just like me. Quiet, underestimated, working while others underestimate them. We're everywhere, and we're coming for everything we deserve. So if this story taught you anything, let it be this. Never underestimate the quiet ones. Never assume you know someone's worth based on surface judgments. And most importantly, never ever mock the girl from Ohio. She might just own the ship. If this story proved that karma is real, smash that like button right now. If you've ever been underestimated and came out on top, drop your story in the comments below. I read every single one, and I want to hear how you proved them wrong. Subscribe for more incredible true stories of revenge, justice, and people getting exactly what they deserve. New stories every week, and trust me, they just keep getting better. Remember, stay humble, stay hungry, and always, always keep your receipts. You never know when you'll need them. I'm Luna, and I'll see you in the next one.